Discover the 17 strange and terrifying rules that North Korean women are forced to follow. Behind the carefully crafted facade of Kim Jong-un, the feared dictator of North Korea, lies a regime of oppression like no other, where women live under relentless control. While women in many countries enjoy the freedom to express themselves and dress as they wish, North Korean women are brutally controlled in every aspect of their lives. They cannot wear shorts, paint their lips, or adopt modern hairstyles. Want to know more about the bizarre restrictions and rules they face every day? Keep reading to understand the harsh reality behind this oppressive system. Being forced to follow rigid styles defined by the regime, the government bans contraceptives and sterilization, and even restricts the right to divorce. In a country where freedom is practically non-existent, these rules reflect only a part of the extreme oppression faced by North Korean women every day. In this video, we will reveal one of the darkest sides of North Korea. Divorce does not exist in North Korea. Divorce is practically non-existent, especially among ordinary citizens. The regime views the dissolution of marriage as an affront to socialist values, promoting the idea that the traditional nuclear family should be a central pillar of society. Women, in particular, face additional barriers as the country's legal system favors men and disregards women's rights in cases of abuse or dissatisfaction in marriage. Culturally, divorce is highly stigmatized, with any attempt at separation considered a grave transgression that can lead to severe punishments, such as social demotion or exclusion from local communities. Additionally, divorced women face enormous difficulties in rebuilding their lives, as the regime tightly controls their movements and economic opportunities, making it nearly impossible for them to regain their independence. This reflects the oppressive nature of the regime, which interferes in even the most personal aspects of citizens' lives, forcing many women to remain in dysfunctional or abusive marriages. Hair guidelines in North Korea. Even hairstyles are strictly controlled by the government. There is a limited list of approved styles for both men and women, with some variations that change over time. Currently, women have about 15 approved hairstyles, many of which are defined by their marital status. For example, unmarried women can wear longer loose hair, while married women are encouraged to keep their hair short. Most of these styles reflect trends from past decades, with modern cuts like the pixie or bob, as well as creative styles like braids or dyed hair, being forbidden. While married women have slightly more freedom in choosing hairstyles, it is still subject to cultural and clothing norms. Traditional attire like the hanbok requires hair to be smooth and neat, while Western clothing may allow slight variations, such as light waves. However, even these options are limited by a cultural standard that values simplicity and tradition. These restrictions exemplify the strict control that the North Korean regime exerts over women's lives, limiting their opportunities to express individuality. While fashion and appearance are forms of personal expression in many parts of the world, in North Korea, these choices are dictated by the state, reflecting an extreme level of control over intimate aspects of daily life. Mothers are asked to report their children. The North Korean regime goes beyond social control, promoting distrust even within families. Recently, the government has begun pressuring mothers to report their children for activities considered illegal, such as watching foreign movies or acquiring prohibited goods. To encourage these reports, the regime promises amnesty for the children who are denounced. This practice further destroys family bonds, replacing mutual trust and support with blind loyalty to the state. This policy not only weakens family cohesion, but also illustrates the regime's paranoia and the extreme level of surveillance to which citizens are subjected. One of the most fundamental aspects of human relationships, private life, is sacrificed in the name of the regime's ideological control. By fostering an atmosphere of fear and distrust, this measure perpetuates an environment where people live under constant surveillance and isolation, damaging the social fabric of North Korean society. Unmarried couples in labor camps. The North Korean government pursues couples who live together without being officially married, claiming that these people poison socialist society by cohabitating without legal marriage. The involved parties are sent to labor camps. The duration of the sentence depends on how long the couple live together without formalizing their union. In reality, many women prefer relationships without formal marriage because unmarried women have more rights than when they are married. Domestic violence and marital rape are recurring problems in North Korea, but authorities rarely treat these cases seriously. If a husband assaults his wife, it is common for the authorities to ignore the situation. On the other hand, if the couple is not married, the man may be punished. Additionally, unmarried couples provide more economic freedom to women as the main breadwinners of the family, allowing them to use their money without interference. However, the government views these relationships as Western influences and does everything to eradicate them completely. Pressure to increase the birth rate. Faced with a declining birth rate, which is seen as a challenge to the country's workforce and economic sustainability, Kim Jong-un's government has been pressuring families to have more children. This policy aims to ensure a larger population to sustain essential manual labor activities in the North Korean economy. The government promotes the idea that women should contribute to reversing the population decline as a patriotic responsibility, with the belief that having more children is critical for the future of the country. In recent speeches, Kim Jong-un emphasized the role of women in this mission, highlighting the importance of their contributions to the long-term well-being and stability of the nation. In addition to moral incentives, material benefits such as food subsidies, housing, healthcare, and other essential resources have been introduced, which are often difficult for many families to obtain. Larger families also enjoy educational advantages, such as access to better schools, making the incentive more attractive. However, these benefits are counterbalanced by the financial difficulties most of the population faces, already struggling with the country's challenging economic conditions. Calling South Korea is a crime. In North Korea, communication with the outside world is heavily restricted, and any form of contact with South Korea is considered an act of treason. Nevertheless, some people attempt to maintain contact with loved ones outside the borders using devices like Chinese cell phones that can pick up signals from areas near the border. This practice, however, is risky and can lead to severe punishment. In a notorious case, a woman was sentenced to 3 years in prison for keeping in touch with her daughter, who had fled to South Korea. The mother and daughter used a Chinese phone to communicate with the help of an intermediary who sold illegal calls. They would meet in a nearby mountain area where they could pick up the signal, but they were caught by an officer while descending. After a month of interrogation, it was revealed that the mother had been receiving money from her daughter for some time, which led to her imprisonment as well as the intermediaries, who received a lighter sentence of 1 year. Additionally, bribing officials to reduce sentences is a common practice in North Korea, and it is believed that the woman with the Chinese phone may have paid to have her sentence reduced. This case illustrates the extreme control and surveillance the regime exerts over the population, where even family ties are monitored and punished. Mandatory military service. Young women in North Korea generally enlist in the military right after finishing high school. Many see military service as a way to secure a better life, as joining the Workers' Party of Korea through the military opens up various opportunities, as larger rations, better jobs, and higher salaries await those who enlist. However, this choice comes at a steep cost. Life in the Korean People's Army is extremely harsh and relentless, especially for women, who often have to give up their dreams. They face the intense cold of Pyongyang, and even as officers, their food rations are insufficient. Moreover, they are not provided with basic hygiene products, such as sanitary pads. Instead, they are forced to use a meter of gauze fabric, which they must cut into smaller pieces to reuse after washing. Women make up about 20% of the country's armed forces. Although the law states that female enlistment is voluntary, the government strongly encourages women to join, making military service practically mandatory. Schools across the country hold recruitment events, pressuring young women to enlist. Once enlisted, women must serve for at least 5 years without family visits, leaves, or any other type of permission. Although there are some exceptions, most become prisoners of the system, many later regretting their decision, as instead of achieving a better life, they lose the most valuable years of their lives. The worst part is that in most cases, they have no other choice. Nothing like dating in historical sites. In North Korea, the social life of young couples is severely limited, especially when it comes to spaces for dating. With the lack of accessible cafes, restaurants, or cinemas, the youth struggles to socialize in traditional ways. To make matters worse, frequent power outages make outdoor meetings even more difficult. In search of alternatives, many young people began meeting in historical sites, which are well maintained and lit at night, offering a more suitable environment for socializing. However, these sites have a nearly sacred character due to their association with past leaders, which led the government to view romantic meetings in these places as acts of disrespect. Authorities responded with severe warnings, demanding that these gatherings cease immediately. The regime sees these spaces as symbols of power and fears that their use by young people for personal purposes could contribute to the spread of capitalist values. This reflects the government's tight control over the most intimate aspects of citizens' lives and its attempt to prevent any form of subversion of the established ideological order. Ban on shorts for women. In 2023, North Korea imposed a controversial measure that banned the wearing of shorts throughout the country, even during the summer. Exceptionally hot, with temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius, this ban primarily targeted women, as leader Kim Jong-un considered it a manifestation of capitalist fashion, something incompatible with the socialist values promoted by the regime. While citizens sought to adapt to the heat with lighter clothing, the government interpreted the wearing of shorts as a challenge to the moral and social standards it imposes on the population. Reports from local residents indicate that at least 10 women were detained for violating the ban, being accused not only of adopting capitalist fashion but also of dressing indecently. Curiously, the ban was not applied equitably, as men were allowed to continue wearing cooler clothes without facing the same restrictions. The detained women were forced to write self-criticism statements and sign commitments not to repeat the mistake. They were also informed that in the event of re-offending, they would face even harsher punishments. In a totalitarian regime, discrimination and control over women's behavior are amplified, and any form of protest or disobedience, no matter how small, is treated with extreme rigidity. Ban on riding bicycles. Although the formal ban on riding bicycles in North Korea was relaxed in 1992, many women still face cultural and social difficulties when using bicycles as a means of transportation. The initial ban aimed to project a more modern image of the capital, Pyongyang, which the government believed was incompatible with a simple means of transportation like the bicycle. Despite the relaxation of the restriction, patriarchal norms in some areas still see the practice as inappropriate for women, associating it with a lack of decorum. Additionally, reports indicate that women seen riding bicycles in public may be subject to criticism or even punishment, depending on the region. The use of bicycles, which could facilitate mobility and improve the quality of life, remains limited by deeply rooted gender prejudices and societal norms in North Korea. This phenomenon exemplifies how social and cultural expectations influence even everyday decisions, restricting women's freedom in a context where the regime's control over the population is extreme. Fashion police in North Korea. The regime exercises strict control over the clothing of its citizens, with particular focus on women. The so-called fashion police, composed of local authorities, patrol the streets to identify and punish violations related to clothing. The use of pants by women. Short skirts or any clothing considered Western are strictly prohibited. For the government, what people wear reflects their socialist moral values, and any deviation from these norms is seen as a threat to national unity and discipline. Women caught violating these rules can be forced to change clothes on the spot or even subjected to public humiliation. The regime justifies these measures as a way to eliminate foreign cultural influences and promote a cohesive society. This control is not limited to appearance but reflects constant surveillance over citizens' individuality, reinforcing the country's cultural isolation and social discipline. Difficulty accessing sanitary pads. Access to menstrual pads is a serious challenge for women in North Korea. The combination of international sanctions and a weakened economy makes basic feminine hygiene products extremely scarce and expensive, rendering them inaccessible for most of the population. In response, many women resort to using reusable fabrics or makeshift methods, increasing the risk of infections and discomfort. This situation reflects not only the regime's neglect of addressing basic women's health needs, but also reinforces the stigma around menstruation. The lack of sexual and reproductive education in the country further exacerbates this problem, putting women in a position of great vulnerability. Smoking is prohibited for women. Although smoking is a common practice among men in North Korea, women face a strict ban on smoking. Society considers cigarettes an inappropriate practice for women, associating it with morally questionable behavior and external influences like capitalist decadence. In a regime where traditional and socialist norms shape gender roles, smoking becomes a symbol of transgression for women, who must adhere to strict behavioral standards. Despite laws against female smoking, some women secretly disobey, challenging the norms in urban areas. However, these transgressive actions are often met with punishment. The ban reflects not just a public health policy but also control over women's individual expression, highlighting gender inequality and constant surveillance over women. Ban on contraceptives. The North Korean regime imposes strict control over the population by banning contraceptive methods, such as condoms and other birth control procedures. These products can only be found on the black market, and doctors who perform contraceptive or abortion procedures face severe punishments, including fines or imprisonment. Despite legal restrictions, many women resort to clandestine methods to avoid unwanted pregnancies, with some being encouraged by their families to seek preventive measures. Although laws are strict, the use of illegal contraceptives and abortions continues, reflecting women's attempts to maintain some control over their reproduction in a repressive environment. Surveillance and photographs. Photography in North Korea is highly controlled. Local citizens have limited access to cameras due to their high cost, while tourists face rigorous inspections of the photos they can take during visits. Tourists are always accompanied by official guides who ensure that only positive images of the country, such as monuments and organized events, are recorded. Photographs of situations showing the country's difficulties are strictly prohibited. Bodyguards monitor tourists' cameras, and if they find unwanted content, the photos are deleted. This visual censorship is part of the regime's control over its international image, aiming to hide the social and economic realities and maintain a favorable narrative abroad. Ban on red lipstick. In North Korea, red lipstick is more than just a makeup choice. It is seen as a symbol of rebellion, ostentation, and capitalist influence. Although red lipstick is often associated with communism in other contexts, in the North Korean regime, it represents a direct challenge to the socialist values of humility and cultural uniformity. For the government, wearing red lipstick is interpreted as an attempt to draw attention or display insubordination, and women who use it risk facing public reprimands. Furthermore, red lipstick is considered a form of expression of freedom and feminine sensuality, characteristics that the regime tries to control in order to prevent any deviation from the established norms. This ban reflects the excessive control of the state over the most intimate aspects of its citizens' lives, including their appearance and the political messages it may convey. And with that, we conclude. If you'd like to see more videos like this, watch the one that appears in the card. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next video.